Ladies and gentlemen, it's Saturday morning, and you are live right now with the Saturday morning cocktail kickoff presented to you live by the Bama Standard and Week Zero Sports. Before you do anything, I want you to go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. We got to that's how we get things going, man. I need you in the comment section, need you in the live chat. I need everybody active today because we got an hour of fun. Hey, I know Alabama's not playing this weekend, but there's a lot for us as Bama fans pay attention to, but we got to give intros. I'm Justin Riley, and with me as always is a living legend from Week Zero Sports, Daniel Pettey. What is going on, brother?
Man, it's going. I don't know how to back that up. Living legend, I guess, in my own mind, right?
Hey, you're living legend somewhere. That's all I got to say. But as always, we are brought to you by Workspace Solutions and all my financial partners and the fine folks, you guys. But anyway, Pettey, what's going on? It's been a while since we've done a Saturday show, and we are almost done with the regular season, which is very hard to believe. But it's not without its drama. And today, as you saw by the tagline on the video, Jimbo's in trouble. So we got a lot to talk about. So
yeah. Well, man, the talk, going into the season naturally, because Saban's the headline, he's the king of football, was the Jimbo Saban feud. But that wasn't the only feud the offseason in the SEC. I mean, Jimbo didn't isolate his tirade just at Nick Saban. He also took shots at Kiffin, calling Kiffin a clown. Of course, Kiffin was taking his shots too. But, I think Kiffin took exception to that and has kind of gotten a little vocal on social media. And even after, even in his first press conference this week, he started throwing some barbs Jimbo's way. So there's some drama. There's some storylines here with Ole Miss and A&M, kind of in the same vein that there was with Bama and A&M. So.
Yeah, but man, the intrigue has definitely been turned up for this A&M and Ole Miss game because more chaos is coming to the forefront.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Ole Miss losing to LSU. Ole Miss was in the driver's seat just 1 week ago with their own destiny and did what a lot of people unfortunately expect Ole Miss to do. They went down to Baton Rouge and laid an egg and opened the door right back up for Alabama to pretty much make their own way with it, which so, and on the flip side, it maybe validated, I don't know, was it Ole Miss's defense looking that bad, or is LSU starting to get some things together, and are we looking to a really big game next weekend with LSU and Alabama that didn't look all that big a couple weeks ago? So, yeah, man, last week built some, and this is going to build a whole lot more going into the stretch run of the season. It's going to be a crazy-ass November.
This is going to be the most interesting 2 or 3 weeks, I think, in the SEC, other than, of course, Georgia and Tennessee, which is going to be next week.
Yeah.
But to Alabama fans, we've we got a lot on our mind right now. If Ole Miss wins this game today, it makes our matchup in Oxford a whole lot more meaningful.
Playing for the West, right?
Listen, man, it's resembling the college football playoff right now because we're going head to head with LSU next week. I'm kind of curious to see where we are, which we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show.
Absolutely.
But LSU is sitting pretty. They were a dumpster fire, and a lot of people written them off early this season.
5 weeks ago, we were laughing about, did they finish, at the bottom of the SEC with the other Tigers, the War Eagle Tigers, and they've made us all kind of look dumb. It looks like they may be fighting for second in the West.
It's unreal that they only have one loss in the conference right now. Of course, that was to Tennessee, which is easily the hottest team in the conference.
But is it really? I mean, Kelly took a minute to get some new pieces together, and so everybody already wrote him off very quickly. But the fact of the matter is, Ed Orgeron, while not a great coach, was a hell of a recruiter, and they've still got 38 4- and 5-star players on that roster. And it looks like Kelly's finally got Jaden Daniels figuring out his offensive system. And, talent's starting to come together. Keyshawn Butte looked like he didn't give a shit the first half of the season. All of a sudden, the light is turned on for that kid. There's talent down there, and it looks like it's starting to care where we had all written them off, like you said, just a month ago. And that's a scary prospect because, go down to Death Valley on a Saturday night and crazy things can happen.
Always going to happen there. The voodoo is running strong. It's at night.
Yeah.
And man, listen, if you are not coming out, hitting on your P's and Q's, things can turn south real quick. God forbid you get a turnover. Man, listen, that is not the place to have your worst game. And Alabama can definitely not afford to have the start like they did in Knoxville a few weeks ago.
No, and this is where, look, I know Marvin played at the highest level and where I kind of disagree with your co-host on the other show, but he played defense. Yeah, no, crowd noise doesn't affect defense. It actually helps it. But I disagree vehemently that it doesn't cannot hurt an offense. And Lane Kiffin pointed that out in his press conference this week, exactly how crowd noise completely changed the complexion of a football game. On the interception, Dart's last interception, when LSU took the lead midway through the third quarter, Ole Miss is driving down with a chance to answer and, take the lead back and maybe make this a back and forth ball game. Well, it's getting loud on the goal line. The tackle turns to make an audible to his tight end. The tackle doesn't hear the quarterback call for the snap. And the next thing you know, the defensive end blows by him, hits Dart before Dart can step in the throw. He throws it 10 yards short on a fade route that's easily picked off in the end zone. As a fan, you don't see that, but after you find out, it's kind of that after the movie intel that crowd noise absolutely changed, made one of the biggest plays in that game possible. So yeah, man, and that was during the day. You guys are getting them at 7 o'clock when the liquor's been flowing for a good 48 hours.
I mean, my only hope is that Gary Danielson will not be calling the game. I hope that he's going to have the early game. Okay. Oh,
I think it's ESPN. I don't think it's.
I hope so. Signal. Listen, I don't want to take another week of Gary, especially in a big game situation, because the man thrives off of Alabama potentially losing a game. I mean, I think he actually is in control of picking the clips during games that Alabama plays when they lose.
See, y'all say that, Justin, but for every fan that watches an Alabama game that Gary calls, they think he's a fan of Alabama and feels the opposite way. I'm telling you, I because you're a Bama fan. But I'm telling you right now, and I get that. I get I watch the game through the lens of Ole Miss. I'm always going to see it is skewed that way, and I get pissed at Gary for the same way. But it finally hit me a few years ago watching him call like Tennessee and Florida or some crap like that. He's just a condescending asshole. He thinks he knows more than everybody watching football, and he is teaching you football every Saturday, and you're coming to the church of Gary. And so it comes off so condescending. So when he's talking about your team or something your team has done bad, immediately you're going to be like, why is he always calling out our team? Well, because he does that. He's a condescending prick. However, like I said, I've seen so many other fans on message boards when they play Bama. It's like, why is Gary such a Bama fan? And that's what finally made me start looking at it from that angle. Like, no, Gary's just a prick overall. And we're glad to see him go in 4 weeks.
I'm telling you, man, no one is more excited than Bama fans. And
y'all get him so much. That's the other thing. You're on CBS is like, Ole Miss was on Jefferson Pilot back in the day. Hell, you're on it damn every week.
Hey, I love the announcer for that. He was great, man.
The three Daves?
Oh, yeah. But
Dave, and Dave? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dave Neal and
Dave Rowe and I don't
Charles Davis. Gosh. Yeah. Interesting crew. But it's interesting watching LSU because they're kind of a Jekyll Hyde in how they go through their games. Mm-hmm. In the first half, they make so many mistakes and putting themselves in crazy situations and predicaments. But then in the second half, it's like this light comes on, a switch is flipped, and all of a sudden they're competent and they're playing to an SEC standard, completely different team. Imagine, and I don't want to jinx us next week, imagine if LSU actually puts together a full game, what that whole plan would look like for them.
I mean, you're going to be in a ball game next week.
Well,
wait, that's not next week. Yeah, next week. Yeah,
it's next week.
Bama's going to be in a. I don't know. Like I just forgot for some reason. I fast forwarded 2 weeks to Ole Miss and Bama playing because I know we play y'all next, but we'll be off watching that.
So y'all be nice and rested. So
need it, man. That's a fear of Ole Miss going into A&M tonight. Look, one of the reasons I think the line is so low, and one of the problems down at Baton Rouge. And I'm not the excuse guy. LSU popped Ole Miss. Ole Miss went up 17-3. They had chances. Dart missed Mingo deep in the second quarter that would extended the lead and maybe changed the complexion of that game a little bit. But when it got in the second half, and kind of what you're talking about, LSU turned it on, but there was another element. And again, not to make excuses, but Ole Miss doesn't really have a lot of depth. We lost our starting safety. We lost one of our starting linebackers to injuries. They were the leading two tacklers on the team. They were sorely missed in the second half. We were missing tackles all over the place. When your safety and linebacker, who are two of your top tacklers anyway, and your best ones are gone, it makes a difference. One of them was a concussion. One of them was a shoulder. What's their health coming into this game when you're going to be facing a boatload of A-chain in your face and 2 tight end sets where you're going to have to load up and stop the run. Another thing that fears Ole Miss fans, we've been running a damn three-man front. I hope to God they realize, tonight that's not going to work against the team that we've joked about already in the show that, or I don't know, maybe that was pre-show. We're talking about Jimbo running the 2 tight end sets. Yeah, well, that was pre-show. We'll get into that in a second.
We'll definitely get into that. Don't forget,
man.
Malik Heath was hindered as well.
Malik Heath got hurt
because of injury, and when you take him off, he's that guy who takes pressure off of Mingo. And if Mingo has all attention being drawn to him, it's really hard for him to get going. So having that solid number 2 guy.
When you lost Michael Trigg, we don't have the tight end was going to be a dynamic weapon in this Ole Miss offense, and now we don't have that threat across the middle that also, again, kind of couples with what you said, taking heat off Mingo. So Mingo's now getting to get bracketed on that outside. When people are wondering what's happened to Mingo, people are getting just what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think a lot of casual fans miss that because, those elements make the offense really go and really sets up what you're already doing in the run game, which arguably is the best in the SEC right now. And some, casual fans were asking me, well, why do they run the ball so much? Well, one, they're having success. You're having success.
It works.
Zach Evans and Judkins are just grown men running the ball. Judkins, I think, came in at 25. And then too, like we just talked about,
Brian Harsin had to cuss somebody out at some point in the season after seeing tape on Judkins, right? Or Saban might not have done it yet because I know he's kind of a process week to week guy. But at some point, Saban's going to pop in that tape on Judkins and say, "Who the hell missed this guy to the state of Alabama?" I appreciate it.
And in our defense, though, with the recruiting class we've had, the running backs we brought in some quality guys, and it's really hard.
I'll have 5 stars next to their name.
Yeah, and it's really easy to miss, a guy like Judkins, who is such a tremendous talent. And God, he's 17, 18 years old right now, and he haven't started scratching the surface yet, and he's already playing like, he's going to be in the NFL Combine come April. So
yeah. He's as good as any freshman I've seen at Ole Miss. But that's been a debate in the Ole Miss message circles now. Is like, where does he rate in freshmen at Ole Miss? I mean, he's up there. The kid's special, and he's going to be relied upon tonight. He's going to have to do it again tonight because I think Kiffin even called out going back to the injury thing. Zach Evans didn't play last week, and man, I know he was banged up, but it almost seemed as if Kiffin was kind of calling him out in the press conference, pulling a little Nick Saban mind games like, hey, man, somebody's got to step up and help Judkins. He can't do this all on his own. Again, like you said, he's a 17-year-old kid facing the rigors of the SEC. It will wear on his body regardless of what kind of tank he is. And one of the fears that nobody really wants to talk about with Evans coming in is finishing a season. He hadn't finished one at TCU, and he'll maybe take the easy road sometimes. Hope that's wrong. But I do feel like Kiffin was calling them out this week, and they're gonna need Evans. They need that 1-2 punch to make it as dynamic as it has been. It's just, as you saw in the second half of LSU, as good as Judkins is, you can't do it by yourself. You need all your weapons, and when you start running out of bullets, SEC defenses eat it up pretty quick.
Right, and I think us as Bama fans can definitely identify with that because
Jahmyr
Gibbs, same thing with Jahmyr Gibbs. He essentially, other than Bryce, has been probably 90-95% of our offense.
Well, without JoJo Earl and and Burton not really being hit or miss. If he's been there, it's hit or miss, no pun intended. Idiot.
A lot of miss.
A lot of miss. But but like you said, as good and dynamic as Alabama is and the talent they have, they're completely relying on Gibbs, who's great, by the way, that he's absolutely as advertised. But, how good is he if JoJo Earl's on the outside and you've got some it's not like you don't have the quarterback. It's not a quarterback getting it to the receivers problem. That's for dang sure.
No, not at all. And, of course, we'll get to Bama as we progress into this show. But I want to go ahead and transition into your game. And I want you to tell Bama fans exactly why it's important for us to be watching this game. Of course, we have you guys in 2 weeks at your place. Right. And for anyone who's overlooking Ole Miss, first of all, shame on you because one, we're playing the SEC gauntlet. We're playing a road gauntlet, which by any stretch of the imagination is not going to be easy. Going to Baton Rouge and playing against LSU, it's always a physical game, always. And it kind of does something with your mind. And right now, we're already banged up. especially in the front. And we'll get to that later as far as who we're missing. But then we go to Ole Miss, who arguably plays the best game of their season against us. There's been a few times where Ole Miss, has been blown out, but it's very rare. Y'all get up for us. We're at your place. Lane Kiffin has come dangerously close. So I fully expect for everything to be hitting on all cylinders, come time we go to Oxford. But Pettey, if you would, man, why is this a game important for us as Bama fans to be watching? And let's go ahead and start talking about what the storylines are heading into tonight.
I actually think Ole Miss plays some of their shittiest games against Alabama. We do not bring it. I think State's played better against y'all historically than we do. I think we crap the bed all the time against you guys. The popcorn game. We've had moments like Kiffin's first year where we've thrown punches, and I think people remember the 2 years that we won. But man, outside of that anomaly, we really kind of stink up against Alabama. Y'all dominated us. And what I'm getting at, I guess if you're an Alabama fan watching Ole Miss, and this is what Ole Miss fans are looking for today. What was last week? Was last week a deal where, we were that game going into the fourth quarter was still a ball game. Like I said, we were driving after LSU took the lead with 8 minutes in the third quarter to take it back, and we threw an interception, and then the wheels came off. Was that a wheels coming off moment, or was that a real Ole Miss was kind of a paper champion? Their schedule was weak on the front end, and they took advantage of it. Now they're getting to the rigors of the SEC. They're kind of getting exploited a little bit because, again, I love Ole Miss, but I watched that Auburn game with a very critical eye. Ole Miss defense couldn't get off the field on third down, and it's because when Auburn figured something out with Robbie Ashford moving his feet. Well, the very next week, Brian Kelly picked right back up with Jaden Daniels doing the same thing and executed it even better, and they went on a run to where Ole Miss couldn't stop it. So the thing you're looking at as a Bama fan, was that an anomaly where Ole Miss, the wheels just came off, or was that really a reveal? Was Ole Miss, do they have weak spots that are exploitable? And I'll be honest, as an Ole Miss fan, matchup wise, I think we do match up pretty well against A&M because it's an immovable object, their offense versus a movable force, our defense. So something's got to give a little bit, and I think our offense can score enough. Mississippi State, I think we kind of match up well with State, but again, they've got I think a better defense than Ole Miss, and never know with the Pirates offense, and that's a rivalry game. Arkansas, it's going to be the exact same game as last year. It's going to be a 52-51 shootout. We're not going to be able to stop Jefferson, and they're not going to be able to stop our offense. That gets back to the Bama game. I think that's a matchup nightmare for Ole Miss. I don't think Ole Miss has a flipping prayer in that game. Sorry, Rebel fans, and I think most of them agree with me. And it's not because the Alabama Ole Miss or the name or anything. I'm seriously, it's a matchup nightmare. Ole Miss's secondary's banged up. Our linebacking core isn't as good after losing Chase Campbell and Ryan Robinson from last year. God, it's not Brian Robinson, it's Robinson, but I'm missing the first name. But he was a damn bowling ball. And Ole Miss it's defensive line's not getting the push they want. I think Alabama's offense is going to be right for the pick in that day. Like you said, you're getting Earl back. Gibbs is going to be dangerous getting in space against Ole Miss's linebackers. I just think that's a real bad matchup for Ole Miss. I don't see – look, again, I get seeing both sides where you say you're going on the road to Oxford. Kiffin's going to pull out all the stops to beat Saban. I'm just not sure the bullets are going to be in the gun for that. But Ole Miss has an off week. Bama's coming off a monstrous LSU game. Again, we'll see what Ole Miss, see how they acquit themselves tonight at College Station. Do they man up, go beat A&M, and act like they're ready for the stretch run? Well, shit, you may be in for a fight because we do get a week off. You do get to rest or whatnot. But on the flip side, man, there's big question marks that might have gotten exposed in Death Valley last week. So,
well, I kind of put an asterisk by it, like we just talked about. Having Trigg out, having Malik Heath out. I mean, those are two big cogs in the machine that really had the offense going. And when you have those key pieces out, it really handcuffs what you're able to do. So I kind of want to put an asterisk by that. So I don't think we saw the full picture of Ole Miss. I think offensively, Ole Miss is starting to figure things out. Defensively, it seems like they're regressing for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on there. But offensively, and I've been saying all season, when that offense starts going, look out. Especially if Jackson Dart starts to come of age. And at this point in the season, you want to see that. Yeah, he's young. He's inexperienced. And, of course, you'll give him his mulligans because that's just what young quarterbacks do. But
Bear Bryant adage, right? Young quarterback's going to cost you at some point.
But
or
at this
young
point in the
player.
season, you want to see him kind of take that next step, transition from freshman to sophomore,
Yeah.
and play a little bit more mature. So the question is, will he do it? Well, tonight, we have a good opportunity to see what Ole Miss is about. And listen, I'm not trying to get ahead. I'm not trying to overlook A&M, but with a lot of the destruction that is going on right now in College Station, it's really hard for me to believe that Texas A&M is going to be able to focus in this game, or let's just call it what it is, have their give a damn turned on. Because right now, I mean, they're staring down the barrel of a gun of maybe Independence Bowl, or even not even finishing with 500.
Yeah, maybe not even making a bowl. And that's a great point, Justin. Everything I just pointed out about Ole Miss are football problems. You got injuries, you got things that go awry in a game. Football problems can be fixed. Injuries can be healed in an off week. You can find ways to make mismatches or plug. What you can't fix is internal problems when the wheels just completely go off a bus. When a team implodes internally, I've seen it happen at Ole Miss. We saw it happen at Alabama under certain coaches prior to Nick Saban. When a team is lost in the locker room, and it's hard to get it back. That's the other side of this coin. I know I'm worried about Ole Miss, but on the flip side, there's a shit show in College Station right now. I mean, you got rumors of players smoking weed vape pens in the locker room, hooking up with girls, beating up the coach's son, fighting with the coach. Who knows if, you can take a grain of salt with it, how much of it's true, but smoke's coming out of that locker room that there's problems, and players are not getting suspended for nothing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, during the season, you could kind of see the body language of Texas A&M, that something just wasn't clicking. It didn't seem like they were buying in, but you also gave them the benefit of the doubt because they were a young team and it was a young part of the season. And that, hey, they may eventually figure things out. Then they drop one to Appalachian State, which is kind of a complete anomaly. And then they turn around, bounce back, and they beat Miami. They nearly beat Alabama, mainly because we are giving them gifts. But then you've got videos of players acting like they're the guy from Fast and the Furious going through parking lots at 9 miles an hour. And like you just mentioned,
he's one of the ones that was with the vape pen, apparently, too. He's a stand
like
up.
you mentioned, supposedly smoking weed, at South Carolina, during the game, supposedly hooking up with girls in the locker room. Another rumor is swirling about is apparently some players attacked Jimbo's son. How true this is, I don't know, but the overall theme here is dumpster fire.
Yeah. I mean, they paid $100 million for this coach, $30 million for this recruiting class, and this is the storyline. Over midway through the season, they've got a losing record. You've got a coach whose record at the same point in his career is worse than Kevin Sumlin's. I don't think this is what oil money was stroking those big checks for, or had in mind when they were stroking those big checks, better yet.
Hey, it's funny is that we're sitting here talking about the players supposedly hooking up with girls in the locker room and stroking, and we have the porn trolls in the chat right now. So I guess we timed that just right.
Oh wow, fine, you love you city.
Yes,
you long time.
But
send them to A&M. Send them to the dude cheerleaders. They need some stroking weirdos.
But is Texas A&M at the point to where they seriously consider paying that huge buyout and getting rid of him? Is it irreparable right now for A&M? Is this season even salvageable?
Well, like Michael Story pointed out, his former Ole Miss football player in our post here, he knows a little thing about football, but he's talking about a pro-style offense without a pro-style quarterback equals a mess. Yeah, Haynes King is like a 4-4 spread them out guy, which I think they're going to play the freshman today. I've heard that he's going to get the start, this big heralded, one of their other 5-star $20 million freshmen that they've got. But yeah, there's a lot of round peg square hole with Jimbo, which makes me think, it kind of gives me some relief as an Ole Miss fan that he's not going to see what LSU and Auburn put on paper and use it against Ole Miss, that he's going to run his offense by God and he's going to run that pro style. And if he does, thank you, please do. Because I mean, we can stop that offense.
Right. I think he's still stuck in a time warp in terms of his offense as well. So I don't really see him reinventing the wheel, nor do I see him turning over the reins to his actual coordinator that was hired to call plays and be innovative.
I've heard rumors that he's going to be forced to this offseason. There's going to be an ultimatum, which I can't imagine that.
And that brings me to the ultimate question is, does Texas A&M actually retain him? Listen, they're paying themselves into quite the corner right here, Daniel, with the over $100 million contract extension, which still baffles me to this day. One, he hasn't won a national championship. Two, he hadn't even been in the conversation for a playoff. Well, you can argue maybe a couple of years ago during the COVID season where they probably could have been in the
that
playoff.
Season doesn't count. But dude, he hadn't been in the conversation to go to Atlanta, much less a championship. I mean, like, come on, buddy, you're in Ole Miss land. You've been to Atlanta outside of a Peach Bowl,
and that's what's so surprising because you can pretty much bank on it. He's either going to be in the Gator Bowl, Independence Bowl, or the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
And that to me does not qualify as a contract extension, 10-year contract extension over $100 million. So, well, A&M stuck, but then again, you got to be real. They did it themselves.
For everybody who has hated, let's take it this direction. For everybody who's hated the NIL and what it's done to college football and run college football, you need to be cheering for what's happening at A&M right now because they are the poster child for why this shit doesn't work. When you're all talent, just a big collection of talent, but not a team, you're seeing what happens. They're as talented as anybody in college football. Their front seven looks as good as any pro football team. They all got the look, but they're a collection of talent. They don't know how to play together. And that's one of the things that's made Saban, the magic in Nick Saban, getting players from one year to the next to, once you've reached that height to stay up there and come together and not play selfishly or, and to Kiffin's credit, he's using this portal and he brings a team of mismatch players together who aren't ranked as highly as what Jimbo's done. And here they are 7-0. Now, is the record great? No, but Jimbo's losing to damn Appalachian State. So it really doesn't matter. But the point being is, you've got a coach taking less players that's also mismatching and making them work as a team. That's a very big indictment on Jimbo as a coach. I mean, if you can't get talent like that together, again, we need to cheer for. I got off guard. We're talking about the NIL. Like it shows that the system's flawed, and people aren't going to keep paying that kind of money. Those old people, I don't care how much money, they're not going to keep spending that kind of money for this damn problem. So eventually, you're going to see the money's going to start declining on this. What we saw the past 2 years.
Yeah, Jimmy Wilhelm, great point. Either Jimbo is a genius, or the old tycoons, the old guys are stupid. I venture to say that it's a little bit of both. I think Jimbo was a snake oil salesman, slimy
all the above.
And A&M is just living in a delusional land, or the boosters are. Well, I mean, Midnight Yell crew.
I watched it because I can't help it. It's like a sad addiction now. I wanted to, mainly because they were playing Ole Miss. I wanted to see what they talked about. By the way, if you count vacated wins and don't add them, you're a damn loser and a liar and a hypocrite. Because I'm going to tell you something. On those years where that team got probation for playing players, your team was also paying players. We just got caught. So if you count vacated wins, you're a damn loser. You lost that game. Sorry, that was my small rant.
There's some bitterness still resonating right there.
Well, I watched the Yale practice, and those dumbasses, they got me fired up.
But in regards to A&M and their super recruiting classes, yeah, they've won the recruiting awards the past several seasons. But if it doesn't actually formulate into something that resembles winning, what good are recruiting titles? And then too, with this NIL stuff, Jimbo, quantity, meaning number of 4 and 5 stars over character, is never the formula that you want to go by. And it looks like character is what is lacking from some of these guys.
Oh, greatly.
Now, folks, we did have a guest scheduled to come on. He was an actual beat writer from SI who covers Texas A&M, and he actually knows exactly what's going on right now. Tim Ham, unfortunately, he's running some technical difficulties due to a power outage, so that's why you have not seen him thus far in the show. If he's able to jump on, we'll definitely bring him in, and we'll talk about the mayhem that is Texas A&M, and if they can actually put something together tonight against Ole Miss. But
Tornado Lane came into town and knocked that power out. Well, he's been poking at A&M this week, hasn't he? His first thing was talking about their defensive coordinator, DJ Durkin, and getting outbid, which that's a good matchup within this game that we haven't really talked about. But, the Ole Miss's defensive coordinator last year left for A&M, and he made an outbid comment early in the week that I think ruffled some feathers. And then he posted the picture of the stadium where the tickets are $4 in the upper deck. And Juice actually tweeted it, said, "Dad, can you take me? I believe we can afford this." A&M fans get salty quick about that shit. You make fun of the Colt, you'll find out how quick they get angry. They're all nice. I've heard so many people, Michael, I've been over to A&M. Their fans are so nice. That's because you haven't poked at the bear. Say something about one of their weird traditions and see how sweet they are. They get real defensive real quick. Talk about the milkman cheerleaders. Hey, your cheerleaders are dudes in milkman outfits. Those are yell leaders. Okay. Whatever.
Oh, wow. So, I see some Bama fans in the chat. Welcome in, guys. Listen, we're going to get to the Bama content in the very near future. But before we do that, one of the highlights of this show is Daniel Pettey's picks. We have a little bit of sports betting going on, and we can't, move forward on this Saturday without getting your last minute picks in. So if you would, man, take over. Tell the fans what they need to do, especially if they're making their last minute wagers, what they need to be looking for.
Oh yeah, man. And it's getting tough. Vegas, about mid-season usually figures it out. So if you want to make your money the first few months and then hope to hang on to it for the last few, but there are some value picks out there. You just got to find them. You just can't be betting on everything at this part of the season because you're going to get burned because lines are all over the place. But so I'm going to get out there this week. No SEC picks. But my first one is, man, if you haven't been paying attention, one of our former SEC coaches from Arkansas, Brett Bielema, has really done an outstanding job at Illinois. People wrote him off, and he's just kind of chugging along. They're really solid against the spread. They're going to Nebraska this week. I really don't think it matters. You can fade Nebraska. That's a program in shambles if you haven't been paying attention. And Bielema's got a very motivated bunch. It's -7.5. A lot of people don't like that half. It scares them off, especially on the road. Take Illinois -7.5. I think they take care of business. It's going to be slow. It's going to be a grind. They're not going to jump out to a quick lead. Maybe they do. But that's just the way they play. Just hang in there and let them grind it out and take the Illini and Brett Bielema. My other one, we go up a little further north in the same conference, is a rivalry game with a huge line, which is usually a big no-no because everybody says in rivalries you throw out the record books. Horseshit, man. Right? That's the biggest myth in all of sports. If you go back over time and look at rivalries, usually the better team wins. And I've heard it in the Iron Bowl. I remember years like, oh man, throw it out, and then Bama would win 49-0 because Auburn not cross midfield. No, it doesn't. That's the case coming up here with Michigan and Sparty. Sparty is really bad right now. This may be a dumb pick, but I think it's such a big number in a rivalry game. Vegas is just baiting you to take Sparty. They're going to keep it close. They kept it close last year. They had a lot different team, a great running back and a good quarterback. I think Michigan -22. Big number. Take it. Hold your breath. Finally, we're going to end the night at midnight. If you are still awake for this, we are going out to the islands. I love to fade Hawaii. We're going to take Wyoming -11.5 over Hawaii. Hawaii has no pulse. Wyoming does have a pulse, and that's all you really need to know. If you've got a pulse, go out to the islands and beat the Rainbows. Jimmy Chang ain't got it figured out there yet. But there's my 3 for the week. Good luck, man, and may the odds forever be in your favor.
Right. Yeah, speaking of Bielema, I just don't think that he was made for the SEC. He's a Big Ten guy, which is very evident right now with what he's putting on the field in Illinois.
Do you think he's happy in Illinois, or wasn't he originally from Wisconsin under the dude that always comes back and coaches? He'll come out of retirement to coach Barry Alvarez. He's like the AD, and he'll fire a coach and then coach the bowl game like every other year.
Yeah.
I believe he was Barry's offensive coordinator. I'm really interested, and that's another reason I kind of like Illinois here. I feel like he may be happy there, but I feel like Bielema may be, interviewing for some of the bigger jobs in the Big Ten right now and has the ability to take advantage of it.
I don't know.
Is he content in Illinois, or is he going?
I don't think Illinois is one of those jobs where you just set anchor. You could turn it back into a legit team. I mean, they were somewhat decent, some years ago.
Simeon Rice, Dick Butkus era.
Yeah.
I can name the 2 players I know from Illinois. Named them.
Without a doubt. So, yeah, thanks for those picks. I think our listeners are dialing up their phones right now or jumping
Call
on
your bookie.
their gambling apps. But now, for the Bama fans who've endured talk about anything not Bama, this is now your time.
Bless your hearts.
Listen, if you've been
what do y'all do? Are y'all excited, Bama fans in the chat today? Like, what are y'all looking for? Like, is it just is it kind of a breathe easy because you don't have to be nervous about beating somebody by 50 today? Or how does it work? How are we working Bama land today?
Man, I tell you what, for Bama fans, there is no anxiety.
Yeah, no anxiety. You're not allowed anxiety unless you're Reuben Foster.
And if you don't know what we're talking about there, I do encourage those who are watching right now to see some of the other content on this channel, especially regarding one Reuben Foster. Trust me, you will be highly entertained by that clip. It doesn't last too long. So for those of you who have ADHD, you don't have to commit to maybe more than 4 minutes.
2-3 minutes of Reuben talking about smoking cigarettes and busting heads.
And man, you can't get much better than that.
My favorite part of the whole thing, outside of the fact that I asked the question that led to his tirade, that still makes my day, was he ends it off with the kind of the PSA to kids. Like he called himself at the end, like, "Oh, kids, don't do that."
Yeah. Responsible mentor.
Responsible mentoring about smoking in the locker room.
But yes, I do have to give you full credit for that because you were responsible for that taking off. One of the best questions, arguably, ever asked on our show.
I never thought I would get to ask about my favorite post-Bama Tennessee victory picture of all time. And it was just one of those magical moments that came together thanks to the Bama Standard.
Well, listen, we got some things to focus on, in this bye week. And one of these things, I'm actually about to show a clip from our show this past Tuesday. And I am curious to hear what your thoughts are. It's something that Bo Scarborough said that he is looking for going into this bye week and brought out some hard truth that maybe we need to take a look at.
My main thing is finding an identity of this team. Like this team is out of whack and no one is together. Like it just seems like everybody just individual. It's an individual, like we playing golf or something. It's ain't nobody that came together and be one like we always been. But technically, I know what's finna happen. We about to go into camp practice. When we go into camp practice, I think they're gonna get some of their mind right because of how Coach Saban does the bye week with the camp practice. But we have to get that identity back, and we have to have these boys scared of us. We have to be more physical than we have been these past 5 to 6 games. Like we haven't been physical at all, not once. We haven't drove no one back 5 yards. We haven't ran the ball downhill and ran nobody over and celebrated for a first down. We haven't done none of that. I haven't seen nobody slap nobody upside the head for making a mental error.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen nobody pull no one to the side and talk to him, on the mistake that he made. So my whole thing for this bye week is to start over.
Man, very powerful words there. Start over.
I watched that whole video, and all I could think is, God, Derek Lassick was such a badass. I was trying to win his end zone celebration. Didn't he come in doing this?
He do the Fred Sanford the heart attack and
that's right.
I'm coming, Elizabeth.
I might have just mixed him up with old boy at Florida who did. I think it was Red that did that. My bad.
Yeah,
but Lassick, God, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, before I kind of give my thoughts on what Bo said, which in that 1 minute and 17 seconds, he really said a lot.
Yeah,
I want to get your thoughts first on what he said and what your takeaway is.
I love to weigh in on this actually because I get to come from a fan angle and a fan that's not, I went to Alabama. I'm a weird, for those that don't know, I did go to Alabama, but I'm an Ole Miss fan. I'm a weird cat, but I have a different angle. So I see Alabama from a different lens. I do see Alabama as a team. Hell, Mike Leach just called it out. You want to scare us to death, put on an Alabama jersey. As an Ole Miss fan, I don't feel good about the Alabama game. Whatever the line is, take Alabama right now. So from my perspective, I'm like, I hear that and I'm like, are you serious? Because most of the casual viewing nation still has that view of Alabama. But on the flip side, I also understand who's saying those words. Bo Scarborough was a part of the machine under Nick Saban, and he knows what it is to have that mindset. And if he doesn't see it on the field, then I'm going to take his word that it's missing. So for him to say that there's not that passion and popping somebody, they're not slapping people on the damn top of the head when they're not getting it done. That's things that happened when he played, obviously, that he's not seeing. So it kind of cues into what you hear, not so much the people that say the dynasty's dead or whatnot, but that say, hey, man, this isn't the machine it always has been. There are some deficiencies. They aren't, when they roll in, it's not holy hell, or we're going to get beat by 50. It's, hey, man, it's Bama. This could suck, but shit, man, we may could do some things against them today. So, and that's what I get out of that. And I've heard people say that. And then when I hear people say that, oh, it's not the same Bama, I'm like, yeah, they are. But when you hear their guys say that, then it kind of opens your attention to say, maybe there is something missing with this team that maybe there is some truth to it.
Yeah, you're right. And that's one of the biggest takeaways I've had, to the casual fan, they're not seeing a lot of these things that I hear that former players are talking about basically daily.
Yeah.
If I'm a casual fan, maybe I don't really buy into that. But then in my position, I'm talking to former players, especially from the Saban era, almost daily. And they're echoing the same gripes, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Pete Golding, then on the offensive side, Bill O'Brien, and I think fans are starting to kind of understand some of our gripes, but for the longest time, they thought we were just hating, and how dare we question the GOAT or any of his decisions or any of his assistants.
Well, now, and that's one I get the Bill O'Brien more than, and I know this would get me shot on your show, than the Pete Golding. And the Pete Golding, I think we get so tunnel visioned in the season and the mystique of what Nick Saban and Alabama's been defensively for so long that we completely lose track with something we also debate in the offseason, but don't for some reason lose sight of it when we're talking about this, is the fact that college football is completely set up for offense. All of football is set up for offense. Defenses that are a complete disadvantage these days, and things that you could do when just 10 years ago when Saban first got there that were intimidation factors that stopped offenses from doing certain things you can't do anymore because, hell, you're scared to touch the quarterback. You can only hit him in it's like a strike zone on a quarterback now. You can't hit him too low. You can't hit him too high. If somebody's coming across the middle, boy, you better pull up because it may be targeting. Those are things that have completely changed the shape of defense. So that's where I get the Bill O'Brien. I think he's one uninnovative son of a gun, but he's getting likes from somewhere, so maybe y'all get lucky and he's gone. The Pete Golding, if you look over a season, he'll have 2 or 3 stinkers where you give up the Ole Miss game of 40 points or one like Tennessee a week ago or whatever. But for the most part, you have games where you're giving up less than 20 points, and it's in an era where offense is so much – the cards are so stacked against the defense. And that's one where I kind of do say – I do wonder if it's going overboard on the Golding because of how much football has changed, and we don't factor that in when we're jumping on him and I get it. When you're in the heart of the season, you're not thinking about all that bullshit. You're thinking about the fact that Tennessee just scored 52 points on us. You're not thinking about football has changed. You're thinking about our defense just got damn raped. So
right.
I get that, but on the flip side, you got to step back at some point and say, shit, look at every defense across the board. Nobody's doing what Oklahoma did in the early 2000s or Bama did when Saban took over. It's just so different. And so, again, I see the Bill O'Brien, but I know Marvin, if he ever hears this, come hunt me down. But I don't get it as much on Pete. I'll put my keep Pete shirt on.
Before I start in on my rebuttal, welcome into the chat, Michael Bauer, LSU fan from Elkhart, Indiana. Y'all popped up on my YouTube suggestion. Cannot wait for this game. Anderson versus Daniels, Perk 40 versus Bryce Young.
Hey, Micah, when this ends, go back to the beginning because we did a lot of LSU Ole Miss talk from last week and what that meant for LSU and turning the corner and y'all's offense. So, hey, if you're just popping in, don't miss the first part of the show because we probably talk a lot of shit that you would like.
But
give us a like and a subscribe.
Yeah, please. If y'all hit that like button, please go ahead and do so and hit that subscribe button too. It helps us out tremendously. But in terms of defense, yes, I get that this is a new age of offense, but then I go back to Georgia. Georgia's defense is wrecking shop, and they've been consistently successful at stopping offenses. So I guess we're looking at that and thinking, okay, why not us? I'm going to throw something out there that maybe fans might not want to hear, but we're also looking at a generation where the playing field is becoming more even. It's not so much lopsided where you have the heavyweights and then everybody else. The transfer portal, it has greatly changed the landscape. Great players are going to other teams now, making teams better.
Look, Ole Miss fans used to joke a few years ago under Luke, I think if Bama brought their third string, they would beat us. Well, it was the case because your third string was also 4 stars. Those third stringers aren't going to sit. They're unfortunately in this microwave generation. You're dead on, man. They're transferring.
But as far as going into the LSU game, first of all, we're catching LSU at a very interesting time. Like we mentioned earlier, they're probably one of the hotter teams in the conferences right now, other than Tennessee. They're surging at the right time. They're starting to figure things out. They're becoming balanced. All of a sudden, Jaden Daniels, who looked like a complete bust from the transfer portal, is starting to look like a very good pickup. He's becoming quite a factor in the offense. And Pettey, like you said earlier, LSU's guys like Kayshon Boutte and some of the other guys who weren't really buying in the beginning, all of a sudden now are starting to buy in, and it is paying off in dividends.
I can't remember what game it was, but there was one game. It looked like Kayshon Boutte would rather be playing pickleball than football. They were throwing passes and he wasn't even looking. Well, it wasn't Florida. It was 1, 2, or 3 before it. But yeah, you hit it. It's like this light came on. I don't see this on any other team. Most teams, they go that route in the light. They just fight it all season. But like you said, it almost seems like from the Florida game, they beat Auburn on the road. Daniels didn't have great numbers, but they played better. Then they go to LSU and Florida, and they put up good numbers. And they play Ole Miss and they put up good numbers. Like you said, it just seems like with the talent down there, lights are starting to come on. And that's not – hell, this is going to be probably one of his worst teams. That's not a good sign for the SEC if Kelly's already figuring it out in year one when it looked like it may go off the rails early in the season, and now it's not. So it's like, well, damn, we thought this was going to be our year to step on LSU and put them to the side, and here they are making noise. So
right. And I told people in the offseason, if you think the LSU is going to be the homecoming opponent of the SEC this year, you're going to be sadly mistaken, because they had the talent. The cupboard was not bare. They weren't starting over. Ed Ogeron and all his ridiculousness was able to get some dudes in there. So to think that they were just going to be a pushover,
y'all can coach.
You don't understand football.
Recruit, not coach. You can recruit. And drink Red Bull.
That's actually pretty good, man. But and what we just said kind of ties into what Bo said. LSU is starting to find their identity now, and finding at the right time they're able to run the ball. Their offensive line, which was atrocious in the beginning of the year, is now starting to come together. Jaden Daniels can use his legs and his arm, kind of like a poor man's Hendon Hooker now. And they kind of know who they are now. They're figuring this out and they're building up on it. But Alabama offensively does not know who they are. And a lot of that has to do with inept Bill O'Brien. He doesn't know what he's doing. It seems to me like his game plan is backyard football, because the majority of the success we've had has been on those magical Bryce plays where he's run from his life, and people like JoJo Earl or Ja'Cory Brooks break off their route, and they're able to get away and make catches in the back of the end zone, bailing Bill O'Brien out. We have not been able to consistently run the ball, so the running back image that Alabama once had isn't really there. But then again, Bill O'Brien doesn't necessarily like running the ball for some reason. I'm not really sure. It's amazing to me, if the running game starts to have some success, Bill O'Brien will completely abandon it, then going back to just throwing all verticals. You were going to say something, Daniel?
Yeah, it just hit me, man. I think y'all are, now that you said it, in LSU's identity and what Bo Scarborough said about Alabama not having one, and where's those guys slapping people, the guys from his days, the assholes. I think Alabama's in a weird paradox, man, because coming into this season, your two guys that you were supposed to build your identity off of was your former Heisman Trophy winner, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young, and Will Anderson, who is one of the biggest freaks that Alabama's had defensively in a world of freaks since maybe even, they were comparing him to Derek Thomas. Right. But here's the paradox. Both those guys, as immensely talented as they are probably some of the most likable guys in college football. What that tells you, they're not assholes. So when you're trying to build an identity, a lot of times your identity is built off a little bit of chip on your shoulder, a little bit of that Marvin attitude of I'm going to come to practice and bust up Sean Alexander. I'm busting everybody's ass because that's who we are. As good as Will is great and as magical as Bryce is in the pocket and with his eyes down the field, neither one of them are really assholes. And if you're trying to, at some point you got it, when you're looking for that identity, somebody's got to get in the huddle and say, now, damn it, we're about to go just kick out. You got to have that Alvin Mack from the program mentality. And again, as great as Will is, I'm not sure he'll blow some shit up and tear up plays, but I'm not sure he's that Alvin Mack. I want to kill everybody. And if you don't, I'm going to bust your ass. And I guess that's what Bo's getting at. And I guess that's the weird thing. You got two of the greatest players to ever play at Alabama, but on the flip side, that's not really their role, is that fire starter. I may be off there, but I don't know. It seems like, if based off what Bo has said and what everybody's seen and what I've seen from these two kids and all the interviews you've seen from Will Anderson and Bryce Young, is, man, they're great kids. They're just good guys. They're not the type that's going to go grab you by the face mask and do that. Or maybe I'm off. I don't know.
No, I mean, excellent point. And that kind of ties into a point that Marvin has been making the past 2-3 weeks. And then Reggie Ragland really emphasized a couple weeks ago was we don't have those enforcers. Those guys are going to be assholes, going to be pissed off for greatness, as Ray Lewis says.
Yeah.
And, we have a few of those guys, but Mike McCoy, former Alabama wide receiver, 2009 national champion, and one of the
Northwest ranking great,
and one of the leading strength and conditioning coaches in the country right now, basically said in order to be successful, you got to have 97% gangsters on the team and 3% church guys.
Look, man,
to kind of keep those other guys.
There was a reason you saw what Walsh, the quarterback, they had the choir boy at quarterback, and he was talking about his guys going out to rob. I mean, that's not what you don't want them out robbing convenience stores, but you gotta have a little Ed Reed out there, man.
You do. So now I kind of want to look at a few areas going to the LSU game that need our attention. First, offensive line. I've been saying it for a long time, and those of you in the chat who've been following me along understand where I'm coming from and what I'm about to talk about. And that's at center, Seth McLaughlin. For the love of God, put him in, keep him in, quit putting Darian Dalcourt back in there. Seth is what we need up front. He is that asshole. He is like a Landon Dickerson, not quite as big, but he's got that gangsta attitude. He's got that blue collar, hit you in the mouth. He's going to get to that second level. He's going to do the bullying. He's not going to be bullied. Darian Dalcourt can get bullied by anybody on the field. And we don't need a passive-aggressive center or passive-aggressive anybody, especially going up against LSU's front of B.J. Ojulari, Ali Gay, and the other people who are bringing the heat.
Ojulari is I tell you, that dude's a menace.
But Seth also brings stability to the offensive line. He gets everybody where they're supposed to be. He makes everybody around them better. He's made Tyler Steen significantly better because when Dalcourt was in the early part of the season, Steen was struggling. He looked just lost. At times, he looked like a turnstile. When Seth was inserted into the lineup against Arkansas, all that changed. We were able to run the ball. We were averaging 6 or 7 yards per carry when Seth McLaughlin was in. And then against Mississippi State, Dalcourt comes in. We're averaging 1.1 yard per carry. We came out of half with only 1 rushing yard. When's the last time that you could say that any Alabama team had only 1 rushing yard and a half? That doesn't sit well with me, and that has to do with what's going on up front. Take Dalcourt out, put Seth McLaughlin in, changes everything. Something you wanted to add?
Yeah, but no, how much is putting Dalcourt in to try to help him in the NFL draft? I do believe Saban is all about getting kids to the league because he knows that's your best recruiting tool. But I also don't believe Saban's playing a kid to help his NFL standings over a kid that's going to give him better results. I mean, he proved that with the quarterback situation. I may be wrong, but I don't. Is Dalcourt a big? And look, this is where I'm off here. I don't know y'all's offensive line as well. I know Evan Neal's not there anymore, so it don't look the same as it did last year. And I know it hasn't looked like a machine. Has Dalcourt been a big issue, and is he an NFL prospect?
He is not. He's been an issue. He's been very inconsistent. He has not been a bully. He's been bullied. He's not been that guy that would say, you know what, keep him in. This is working out just fine. Because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Where you look at Seth, last year, if you watch that Georgia game, and that's his championship, he was going up against that vaunted Georgia front led by Jordan Davis, and he didn't break a sweat.
That big guy's name.
Yeah, he didn't break a sweat, man. He was handling those guys.
I think I can block Jordan Davis.
Do you think you can block Jordan Davis?
Damn right I could.
But as far in terms of the NFL draft, I no, because I don't see him high on any draft boards. He may be a guy that's picked up in the free agency market solely because he played at Alabama. I'm just going to call it what it is. Moving on to the defensive line, we've had some guys banged up against Mississippi State. We were playing third and fourth string
Otis
guys.
Out?
Jaheim Otis was out. DJ Dale was out. Justin Boybe's out. We also had Deontay Lawson, linebacker, out. So we had some significant pieces that were missing. Just found out this past week that Justin Boybe is done for the season because of neck surgery. And that was a key part to the defensive line that really was allowing it to blossom and finally start turning back into that great wall of hell no. And it's great because he's been kind of a disappointment up until now. He seems to have got that give a damn turned on, and it was filtering over to the other guys on the defensive line. But then Jaheim Otis comes in, looks like a man-eater, playing above his age. Looks like
I'm so glad he's turned out for you guys. That's magical.
Absolutely. But having him and having DJ Dale,
Mississippi defensive linemen that go to Alabama and just become badasses. It's so fun to watch.
I can tell if you're being sarcastic or if you're genuinely happy.
No, I'm happy for y'all. I love all the Mississippi defensive linemen that go on to greatness at Alabama. It's, Rakeem Davis. It was fun watching him be badass. It's great. It's great. All the way back to Michael Myers. It's good times.
But against LSU, like I said, they're surging right now. That defensive front is going to have to be present. Jamil Burrows is going to have to come up big in the absence of Justin Eboigbe. Jaheim Otis is really big in this game. DJ Dale, really big in this game.
Good, though, man. I love Otis. Otis is an athletic Terrence Cody. He's
good
was
comparison.
I saw him at the driving range a time or two. It was amazing what he could do. But
yeah, at the end of that game, Daniels' jersey needs to be completely green, maybe even borderline black and brown, just because of how many times we put him in the turf. We can't use the approach we did against Tennessee where we didn't attack the quarterback.
No, and look, man, as much as we talked about Auburn putting on film for LSU how to exploit Ole Miss, Tennessee put on film how you can mess with Bama. And Brian Kelly's got a little more bullets in his gun than he did in the Notre Dame days. I don't know, man. Part of me thinks that Ole Miss just got exploited and they're trying to make this game big and Bama's going to Bama. But on the flip side, I know what talent's on the bayou. I think Kelly's a good coach. I think it really is a sign of LSU coming together, and we may be back to those damn huge Bama LSU clashes that we had just 4 years ago.
Quite possible. And one more factor I'm looking at, and then we'll move on to probably the game of the day, which is Tennessee and Kentucky. I'm looking at secondary.
Ole Miss is always the game of the day, Justin.
Ole Miss is always the game. Yeah,
no, Kentucky, Tennessee is going to be big. Man, we ain't even talked about the cocktail party. That's how bad, how bad is Florida falling off that the cocktail party isn't even like it's an afterthought.
That's coming up next. But
the cocktail party so far has been out of my McDonald's Muppets cup.
And,
hey, I challenged. Has anybody got a cooler cup than I do today? So that's
I
old.
seriously
That's
doubt
the
that.
80s old school Muppets McDonald's. Badass. You're
But the
welcome.
final point I want to bring up is Alabama's secondary. We're going up against a
Ooh.
formidable wide receiver core at LSU, who outside of Tennessee's trio is probably one of the better wide receiving cores in the SEC right now. Keyshawn
Is.
Butte, like we mentioned earlier, he's coming on. He's looking like that NFL top 10 draft pick that he was being projected to be at the beginning of the season. But also don't forget about Malik Neighbors and Jeray Jenkins. These guys are a talented group. But also on our side of things, Eli Ricks has made his long-awaited debut, and it paid off dividends. And like you mentioned earlier, Petty, this guy looks like he can be an asshole on the field.
And I think he is that kind of guy, but he hasn't really. This is where the transfer portal gets weird too. I don't know. Man, we're old school SEC people. It's weird seeing a Mississippi State player line up at receiver for Ole Miss, and to have LSU's top cornerback come over and try to fit in that culture that is Alabama. And look, y'all talk about it on your show all the time. There's a culture to Alabama. There's a culture that Nick Saban's created that is different than anywhere. And as uber talented as Ricks is, we expected him just come in and work. Well, man, there's still life to be had. You still got to, there's all this other stuff that goes in it, learning a new playbook, new teammates, all this stuff. It doesn't just happen overnight for everybody. So
don't forget about the culture too.
Yeah, that's the culture. And so people wrote off Ricks because he wasn't there in 3 weeks. Like you said, now he's starting to step up. And trust me, if you don't think he's going to be motivated for this next one, but he might be. But going back to what you said, I didn't mean to get on the long rant. I think he may be the asshole you need. He had to get in your culture to be accepted. You can't just come in being an asshole. You got to be accepted before you can be. You can't start at asshole and then build down. You got to be accepted, and then you can kind of, okay, now that they trust me, I can slap you on the ass when you screw up. So maybe he's getting to that point because, dude, there's no doubt the talent's there with Ricks. He's talent-wise, he's one of the best cornerbacks on the market.
Yeah, without a doubt. And one of the things I want to point out to Bama fans, as great as he looked last week, and look, he did some. It wasn't just him being great. Is what he was doing was allowing others to be great, allowing others to be freed up and used in ways they're meant to be used. Like DeMarco Hellams was able to go back and play his natural position. He was able to come down in the box and be more of like a hybrid between a safety and a linebacker. You have Brian Branch able to be used in so many other ways, especially in blitzing packages. We haven't been able to really do
because you've been running zone when you
defensive back blitz.
A great cornerback that can lock down a good receiver opens up so much on a defense. You're dead on right there.
And that's one of Nick Saban's bread and butters is having those defensive backs come in on blitzes. We haven't been able to really do that this whole season up until now. But now guys like Brian Branch and even Malachi Moore are able to do that. And then Jordan Battle hadn't really got a whole lot of hype this year. And a lot of Bama fans are starting to question of just how good is he? Is he dropping off? No, I think that he has basically has had to be the modern version of Xavier McKinney, where he's had to make up for a lot of others' mistakes. Mm-hmm. Now that he has some guys in there like an Eli Ricks, who is able to be competent and lock down his side of the field, it allows Jordan to do what he does best and not have to play babysitter to others out there. And then on the other side, Kool-Aid is getting better every single week. So it looks like the secondary is finally in place, but caution, we have not seen how good they can really be because we haven't played a wide receiver group like LSU's other than Tennessee.
You have, and it didn't go well. So that's
it didn't go well. So
as
excited as Bama fans are about Eli Ricks, don't use the Mississippi State game as the measuring stick. LSU game is going to be that measuring stick because, like I just mentioned, Butte, Neighbors, and Jenkins, there's some guys. So this is where the hype needs to be lived up to.
Yeah, I don't, man. It's funny you brought up State. I don't know if my State buddy's still watching or hung in at this point. He'd probably throw in the towel, but I got a State buddy that watches a lot. That game with Bama and State last week, look, for Bama, it was just another game. For State, it needs that. That's quite alarming. Bama struggled just a week earlier to stop a potent passing attack. And Mike Leach is known for this air raid. And Bama, they gave up their first touchdown to the air raid since Leach has been at Mississippi State. It doesn't, again, like you said, caution, don't use the State game as a barometer to, oh, we've figured it out, because y'all figured out State's offense 3 years ago, and it's just not going to work against Alabama. It's not going to work against upper tier SEC defenses. So that wasn't a barometer for what you're going to see against LSU. LSU and Brian Kelly are much more going to try to create mismatches and have your safeties covering receivers the way Tennessee did. So yeah, I agree with you there, but man, I did want to touch on that Bama State game, man. That's got to be sobering, man, because State, I thought, was pretty good earlier in the year, had a good defense, had a chance to maybe make some noise, and actually Ole Miss and State battled it out for second in the West. But that game was an indictment to the fact that I don't think Leach will ever beat a top tier SEC team. Not to go, sorry, Ben fans, not to go off a rail, but it just kind of that was on my mind. And from that game last week,
we get it.
It's not a misnomer. It's not like you said, a barometer to look into the LSU game. It's more, good God, that's a barometer that the State the power does not work in the SEC.
And one last thing, then we'll jump to the next few topics here. It's alarming to Alabama fans that we weren't able to put up a touchdown in the second half. And State had some key players. State had some players out because of being ejected, and we still were able to exploit that. So
that was okay. Let's go that direction, Justin. State's defense, I've given a lot of credit. Arnett's done a really good job in Starkville with the defense, and hell, in a game when your offense is, your quarterback's throwing 60 passes, completing 30 for 3.9 yards, your defense is having to do a hell of a lot of work. But they gave them every opportunity in the second half. Why wasn't Bama's offense able? I mean, the offense is that was an anomaly that second half where y'all couldn't get anything going. I don't know if it was just a malaise. I don't know.
It's a good question, but we're not going into LSU and coming out with a victory if we're going in with that kind of offensive philosophy. So, all right, we got some other games today. I made mention of one of those, and that is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Georgia versus Florida. Florida is playing better than what they did under Mullen, and I think that Napier is the guy for the job.
100%.
It's going to take him some time. Gator fans need to be patient with him, let him get his players in there and get his culture in there, and eventually you're going to start seeing the Florida of old. Mm-hmm. But what are we going to see today in this matchup? Is Georgia due for an upset? Some people are calling for it. How logical that is, don't know yet. I mean, it may just be a way to get people to watch the game and put that little seed of doubt. But what's the reality of this?
I'm 100% with you. I think Napier is the guy. I don't think people realize just how bad Mullen recruited to Florida and what Napier's having to build back up. He's actually doing a good job in recruiting if you're paying attention. Be patient with Napier. But today might be a bit of a challenge. Georgia's really weird, man. They're number one in the country, but I promise you they're the best team that I've watched the least out of any football team ever, just because they've really played nobody. Every week when they're playing, there's more important games on. So all I really see are clips of Georgia. So it's blindly ignorant. I'm almost like a spectator fan going off what I've seen off highlights. I know their defense isn't what it was last year, but it's still pretty good. I know Bowers is a stud. I know Stetson Bennett's 40 years old and does enough to get the offense going.
He has tenure.
On the flip side, though, man, when you start looking at the metrics, Georgia's 6-1 against the spread this year. They are getting it done. Last year against AR-15, Anthony Richardson, they held him to 80 yards passing on 12 of 20 throwing. He couldn't get anything going. Again, it's not the same Georgia defense, but I don't know how good they are. Can they shut down Richardson again? And I kind of think they can. Look, man, there's some funny lines out there today, and this is one of them. You've got the biggest line ever for the cocktail party. It's like 21. It's gone down to 21.5 because I'm assuming people are like, come on, man, Florida's got to make this a game. But that's what it screams to me. When Vegas does shit like that, they're trying to play the Jedi mind trick to make you think, well, man, Florida's going to keep it closer than that. And then at the end of the day, it's 49-20. And I think that's what we're going to get in this. I don't think Florida, as much as I do love Napier, like you said, I think he's the man. I just don't think they have the offense right now. I think Georgia's kind of quietly just been strumming along. I know a lot of people remember the only game they really remember about Georgia is that Missouri game because they almost got upset. Whatever. Georgia had a week off. I know they've got Tennessee next week. Me and you talked about before the show. Tennessee and Georgia could both be potentially in the letdown spot with such a big matchup next week. But, you know, I don't see it. It's the cocktail party. Kirby takes this game serious. I don't know. I see Georgia. I see Vegas playing with this line to make people think Florida's going to keep it a game, and then Georgia kicks their ass.
Excellent points. I do want to remind everybody of how well Florida played Tennessee earlier in the year. Now, if that Florida team can show up against Georgia today, but here's the key, here's the caveat to that, play mistake-free football. If they can do that, then this can be a game. This isn't going to be a blowout. But if Georgia's able to force those turnovers, which that was the difference in the game last year. They created chaos. They created turnovers. They made AR-15's life a living nightmare.
Yeah.
But this is a different AR-15. He's making better decisions. He's maturing. He actually has a coach that knows how to develop him. And let me just tell you right now, Napier had to push the reset button on AR-15 because of how bad Mullen was as a coach and as a developer of talent, especially at quarterback. And for AR-15,
so glad we can finally say that and get over the fucking Mullen as a quarterback. So good quarterback guru myth. He is not a quarterback guru.
He's on the same lines as a Jimbo Fisher. I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
Ooh, Frank's right though, man. That Florida defense sucks.
But AR-15 is getting better each week. Is he there yet?
He has, man.
Is he there yet? No.
Throws,
and for him to be able to make these strides as quick as he has, it says a lot about him. Now, can he play the game of his life today? Because that's what's going to take. We don't know. But like I said, as long as they don't do anything to beat themselves, this will be a close game.
But Frank in our chat brings up a good point, and we need to look at those metrics. Florida's defense is they're ranked in the 100s across the board. And look, I know Georgia, it doesn't look exciting offensively because, again, they've got a 40-yard quarterback that's like, I forget his name, Trent Dilfer. He's Trent Dilfer of the SEC. So people overlook it, but the fact is, man, he takes advantage of bad teams, and Florida is a bad defense. I think that's why Vegas has this line set so high. They're not sure if Florida can ever stop Georgia on offense. I don't know, man. I'm torn on this one because I also think Georgia can stop Georgia on offense due to lack of imagination. But
I'll venture to say too, are they getting bored because of lack of competition?
Absolutely, man. We want to talk about Ole Miss's schedule. Georgia's in the same boat. They ain't played shit. They ain't played nobody.
Because other than Oregon, and maybe I guess you could argue the Auburn game, and Auburn was just awful. When have they really been offensively enthused? You really haven't seen it. Do they get offensively enthused today?
Oh no, this is
because of the rivalry game. I don't know.
Do they sleepwalk because they got Tennessee coming in next week? No, I don't think they overlook that. I'm not buying into the overlooking because it's Florida. This game's too big.
Plus, first of all, Georgia is well coached. I don't think that they have it in them to overlook an opponent just because of who their coach is. Kirby Smart.
Man, Kirby is. Look, man. Say what you want about Kirby. I don't think he's the greatest in-game coach, but he is definitely Nick Saban bred in the fact that the process and taking one game at a time. With that said, I think Tennessee pops them the next week in Athens. Ooh. I think the train ends. I think we're getting towards the end. We're talking about this game. I think Georgia takes care of business today. I think Tennessee pops them next week, and I think we get a Tennessee-Alabama rematch in the SEC championship, which is something we've never gotten.
You're getting ahead.
I'm getting real excited. But I think I've been I do my ponderings, and this is how my ponderings.
But listen, Georgia's going to do something Alabama didn't. They're going to attack Hendon Hooker, and they can do it. But we're getting ahead of ourselves because
when you attack a hooker, a pimp comes out and slaps you. You do not let the pimp slap you from behind. Like, you be careful attacking a hooker. Y'all tried to attack a hooker with that cheetah, and he's the first person that made the cheetah pay.
Wait, first of all, we did not. I didn't even remember seeing the cheetah package in that game, which
Because
still is another thing. That's another issue that I am having right now with Pete Gold. Why didn't we see the cheetah package against Tennessee?
Because it wouldn't work. Because he did. I thought he did bring it out, and the hooker broke it.
Nope.
God, what a great name. I just want to play. I mean, I hope we can you get names like Hooker, and then it just makes the jokes roll off the tongue.
I'm telling you, it's perfectly set up for comedy. But we can't get ahead of ourselves, because and this is our next segment. We have a game today, or Tennessee, I should say, has a game today, an important game that's not being really talked about because they're playing Kentucky. But this isn't the Kentucky of old, folks. This is a much better coached Kentucky, a more talented Kentucky. The rivalry all of a sudden means something. I think this is the first time, 60 years or more that both teams were ranked coming into the game.
Really?
Yeah, it's I forgot what the stat was. So fact checkers in the chat, please go back and check that. But it's been a ridiculously long amount of time since both teams are actually ranked going into game play.
Stephen A. Smith is the celebrity guest picker. Sorry.
Really?
Yes, I've got game day on. Stephen A. Smith is celebrity guest picker. Why are you not at game day with the sign? Have we not talked about this? Game day is at my co-host hometown right now, and he's not out there with a sign that says Joey Freshwater, Alligator, Jackson, City Water.
Listen, I didn't want to
fall.
Why
are you not out at game day right
now? I didn't want to fall into a pothole.
I lost my time in a pothole.
Man, yes, but those of you who don't know, game day is at Jackson, Mississippi right now, and they're covering Jackson State versus Southern, which is great for the HBCUs and great for both those programs, and Coach Prime, which is a testament of what he's been able to do as a coach and bringing pride and notoriety back to the SWAC. We could have a whole show about what he's done there, but yeah, very much deserved.
Whoever that coach was that said he ain't SWAC enough, buddy, I hate to break it to you. He's done more for your SWAC than any coach since Robinson at Grambling, man, dude.
That actually is Robinson's son.
Really?
Yeah, that's A. Robinson Jr., sir.
That said he wasn't SWAC enough?
Well, he said he wasn't SWAC. And
what is SWAC, man?
That's what Dion said. Matter of fact, he made a music video about it. It's pretty awesome.
Oh crap! I need to watch it because, dude, I can't. As a hometown Jackson, Mississippi boy, I'm pumped to see. Who would have thought game day in Jackson, Mississippi, man? Look what Dion's done for that program. That's absolutely damn amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you bring up a very good point. I know we're kind of off the rails. And
sorry, I go off. Hey,
Kentucky,
I'm on Bloody Mary number 3.
But
so
how can you say he ain't SWAC when, Pettey, great point. He's bringing eyes to the conference that honestly hadn't been there since
Daddy didn't even bring.
Steve McNair hadn't been brought since 1994, and Steve McNair was there.
Dude, some of the greatest football players to ever step foot in the NFL came from the SWAC, and it didn't get the notoriety that Primetime has brought to Jackson State.
Right.
Bringing in the #1 recruit in the country, bringing in a son who's done a hell of a job at quarterback. Now you have game day. Dude, the SWAC has seen Jerry Rice, arguably the greatest receiver to ever play. Sweetness, Walter Payton played at Jackson State. It didn't have the notoriety that what he's done. So to say he's not SWAC, he may not be SWAC, but buddy, he's putting SWAC on the map.
And it's funny is that one little caveat to that: if he ain't SWAC, he got his degree from Alabama State. He finished his college at Alabama State. Yes, and the coach at Alabama State said he wasn't SWAC.
And he got his degree from Alabama State.
He finished up his degree at Alabama State. Yes, but he ain't SWAC.
Dude,
all right.
Dion was Florida State stud, NFL, doing it all. He was SWAC before SWAC ever thought what SWAC was. Man, if he ain't SWAC, ain't nothing SWAC.
True that. All right, back to the game at hand. Tennessee versus Kentucky. Interesting situation here, guys. We're talking about looking ahead. Tennessee is in a curious position. They're actually coming into a game with expectations behind them. Tennessee hadn't had expectations behind them since, okay, well, I guess we could say, 1998? And and then too, they are also setting up for a game of epic magnitude next week, where it can determine what the college football landscape looks like in a few weeks come Selection Sunday. So how does Tennessee handle all that? Are they ready for prime time? Are they ready for the big stage? Are they going to be fully dialed into Kentucky? Like I said, they're not a pushover. Will Levis is one of the more talked about quarterbacks and a high NFL draft pick, projected that is, in this next draft. They have some dudes out there. They actually have a defense that's ranked 9th in the country. Kentucky does. So this could be interesting, for Tennessee. So what do you see in this?
I'm going to answer your question with a yes. And oddly enough, I'm going to go back to last week when Tennessee played UT Martin. And they played nobody. They kicked the shit out of them. Nothing to see here. Actually, yeah, man. They just beat Alabama for the first time. My kid had never seen that happen. My 12-year-old never seen Alabama lose to Tennessee. It happened. Tennessee did it. They beat Alabama, kicked the field goal, all that magic. All that. They tore down the goalpost, threw it in the Tennessee River, charged their fans, all that exciting shit, played Dixieland Delight, fun times. There is nobody that would have been shocked if Tennessee would have come out the next week against UT Martin and won 34-17 in a game where they just had a hangover from the biggest game of their life. What a good team would do would kick the shit out of them and take their starters out at halftime. Tennessee had 52 points by halftime at a game after winning the biggest game in 20 years in Knoxville. That, man, it may seem like nothing against a cupcake, but to me, that tells me that's a team that's locked in. They know they know there was no letdown after Bama. I know Georgia's coming up the next week, man. I think this Tennessee team's different. I said it, and maybe I'm trying to prop because my first podcast of the year, I picked Tennessee to go to the SEC championship and rock the boat. And there's a chance now. So maybe I'm just kind of standing on that till I look better later. But no, I think the answer is yes, man. After last week, I expected Tennessee to kind of have a lull and not just look great. They did. Maybe they do this week. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they prove me wrong, and it does that. And you can say, well, yeah, they had to let down going into Georgia, whatever. It was a close game. Kentucky is a good team. You're dead right. Where Kentucky can get them, and if you go back to the Ole Miss game, you're right. Levis is a top quarterback in the NFL rankings. Rodriguez is a good running back.
Mm-hmm.
They do those.
So is their running back with the best name ever, Cavassier Smoke.
Thank you, parents. Thank you, parents, for the foresight of that great name, knowing that he was going to be a football player. But no, Kentucky's that team that can take teams like Tennessee who like to go quick and score fast, and take them out of their element and make them uncomfortable. They can go on those 10-minute, 15-play drives where you're running Rodriguez up the middle and Levis is hitting the 5-yard, 10-yard routes and just dinking and dunking you to death. And the next thing you know, they've taken 10 minutes off the clock and it's a 7-7 game. That's where Kentucky makes this a ball game. If they can sustain the long drives and keep Tennessee's offense off the field, I do believe this is where, Kentucky and Stoops is, like you said earlier, he's a great coach. He has absolutely changed the culture. What we've talked about a lot at Kentucky, and they don't fear Tennessee. And I don't know, man. This is going to be a great game. As much as I love Ole Miss, this is the most exciting game of the day because of all that intrigue. You've got Tennessee's biggest game of the year next week. They now have expectations for the first time in 20 years. This isn't your mama and dad's Kentucky. This is Bear Bryant's Kentucky before he left, before True. Mama called. So it could be a really, really damn good game because Kentucky does have the bullets in the gun. They do have the coach. But on the flip side, man, look, nothing sucks like a big orange, right, Bama fans? We do not like that orange, but good God, when they wore black under Kiffin, and it was the stupidest uniform I've ever seen. But, man, they brought out these black uniforms, and I'm not going to lie.
They're dope.
It's fire. It's fire.
It
is.
Makes
you think you're going to be pumped. I expect the Vol Navy to come out and kick some ass tonight, man. I really, really do.
Frank, excellent point. Teams reflect their coach. UT head coach never takes his foot off the gas.
No.
Going to be tough to outscore Tennessee. And, which leads me to a point, you just mentioned having bullets in the gun. One of those bullets in Tennessee may be returning today, and that's Cedric Tillman. And it's crazy that Tennessee has been without all their receivers up until this point, but they're still just putting up ridiculous stats. Of course, Jalen Hyatt has been one of the premier guys who's kind of emerged. And of course, we all know what he did against Alabama. To be honest with you, he probably doesn't have to play another snap. He can use that as his NFL tape.
I had Peerless Price flashbacks with that kid on the field. I'm not going to lie.
Peerless Price,
like,
man. You went back. How old are you, sir?
Old enough to drink Bloody Marys.
Right. But yeah, you get Cedric Tillman back today. You get Jalen Hyatt, who's already just off to a phenomenal year. Brew McCoy is an excellent third option. I don't think they had the dudes to keep up with that. If they get into a scoring fest against Tennessee, Kentucky just doesn't have those horses, man.
I think Kentucky. Look, and I tried to make this a game for the intrigue. I'm trying to be that, that sports guy that makes, this is a big, exciting, Herb Street will try to make a 42-10 game intriguing. I think this could be a 42-10 game. I think Kentucky's walking into a powder keg tonight.
It's gonna be.
I'm sorry, man. Maybe I know I'm getting ahead of myself. Bama fans, lick your chops because teams don't like to face Saban for a second time. I think you're gonna get your shot at this rematch. I know I'm crazy, but I'm calling it now. Bama and Tennessee are going to face in Atlanta.
We would love to see that as Bama fans.
No, I'd love to be wrong and it be Ole Miss. Like, I would love to rock the boat. Come on, baby.
Which leads me to my point, man. We still got a long road before we get to the
SEC go to Oxford,
championship. Baby. We got to go to Baton Rouge. And we got to go to Oxford.
Got to go to Red Stick. Got to go to God's country.
So, yeah, those two games, those are playoff games for Alabama.
It really is. And that's where people lose. And I'm excited that the playoffs about to expand. But let's be real. We get a playoff. This is it, man. This is the playoff. Ole Miss is effectively in the playoff right now. You beat Texas A&M, you move to the next round. You get Alabama. Every marble's on the table. You make magic happen. You upset the monster from Tuscaloosa. You're in the driver's seat. You're right, Justin. We're in the playoff. But on the flip side, Bama takes care of business down in Baton Rouge. LSU's now out of it. Then you go take care of Ole Miss. You set up the driver's seat to go face Georgia or Tennessee 1 and put yourself right back in that mix. So, yeah, we're effectively in the playoffs right now in November.
Hey, let me mention something to piggyback off of that. And
Number one is Tennessee is God's country, nowhere else. Buddy, it's Oxford. Look, great that Tennessee's back. I love your Vol Navy. I'm glad that y'all got goalposts that were floating that your frat boys pulled out and sawed apart. God's country's in the Grove.
Listen, I got a question about the goalpost in the Tennessee River. Why not just cut that thing into pieces and sell it?
They did. Students went and jumped in and retrieved it and then cut it up.
Man, I had that on eBay so fast. That's about the most Tennessee thing you can do.
The most Tennessee thing was charging the fans to pay for it. Like, Ole Miss is the most nickel and dime college in all of football. And when we tore down the goalpost on your Alabama asses, at least the school paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
But interesting point.
Can we talk about that? Let's talk about this one elephant in the room, which, by the way, that new Heisman commercial is hilarious. The elephant in the room. Love it. Y'all look down your noses at the goalpost thing. I get it. We don't tear down goalpost at Bama, but y'all are missing out on one of the true joys of life. Charging the field and taking down a goalpost I get it, man. Y'all are bigger, but it's fun. It's a good time, man. Everybody loves it. There's nothing like, watching a student at the top of the goalpost wondering if he's going to fall off the top of it.
Yeah, but so is hoisting a championship trophy on the podium.
Damn it.
Now,
yes, it is. I'd burn down the Grove for a championship.
I know you would. You would. But as we start to come to the close of everything, interesting point. If this scenario plays out, it would definitely push for that 12-team playoff to start right now. And what do I mean by that? Okay, let's say that Tennessee goes down next week to Georgia. Mm-hmm. They go undefeated. Alabama gets to Atlanta. They beat Georgia. Then you got a three-way tie, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, all with one loss. Who goes to the playoff? Right? 12
Notre Dame.
playoffs.
Do I pick Notre Dame here? Is that the answer? Cincinnati? I don't, man, because here's the Big 12 is finally starting to cannibalize itself. I thought we may get an undefeated out of that. Is TCU still undefeated, right?
Yes, they are.
See you, Bammer. Dadgummit. Y'all just can't have fun with me here, can you? You can't just visualize how fun it would be to y'all torn down one before,
Tearing
right?
down goalposts is just a sign of not being used to winning.
It's a sign of enjoying winning to a different level. And yeah, true, man. Look.
So are rings, sir. So are rings.
When you slay the look. Hey, LSU rushed the field on Ole Miss, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Does that mean we've arrived? Bama fans, answer this question for me in the chat. I'm an Ole Miss fan. I'm not used to this. We are the field Chargers because, we're not used to winning, like you say. Does that mean you have arrived when a team rushes the field on you? Bama, answer me.
Paul Malone says the SEC champ would go. That would be the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So.
You're right. I mean,
but who would that number 2 spot? I mean, obviously you couldn't keep another team out.
Well, and that's what you're talking about today. It just depends on, they're always wanting to, if the Pac-12 has one, if the Big 12 has one, if the ACC, because nobody's going to knock off Clemson at this point.
No.
I don't think we get 2 SEC this year unless we get some more cannibalization along the way. Otherwise, the SEC champion is that's it. Whoever wins in Atlanta, be it Bama or Tennessee. Boy, Georgia fans are really going to hate me after this. But yeah, Georgia, Bama or Tennessee is your SEC representative for I don't think we get 2 this year.
Which I will say
that, man. There's 4 weeks of crazy.
Which I will say, to 2 points you made about Clemson and crazy. Clemson's always has that what the hell game that they dropped to somebody they had no business losing to. So that's still there in the atmosphere to be had.
I thought it was going to be Florida State, but they hadn't done it. And they do keep, I'll say this, Justin, to your point, they keep playing with fire, playing ukulele. As long as ukulele plays, they got a chance to lose. But the backup is hands down better. And everybody in college football knows it, but Dabo. I don't know. We don't have anything against Darren Gongo.
Well, according to my nephew, Ole Miss.
By the way, this guy right here, this is J. Jared Smith. I'm going to tell you a little story. Alabama had Sean Alexander up for the Heisman, and Ole Miss had a guy named Deuce McAllister, and we talked mad shit going into this game. And it was over in Oxford, and y'all ended up beating us because, y'all always beat us. And I came home.
I was there.
And, I was there too. J. Jared Smith had my Colonel Rebel in a noose hanging from a tree. And my yard was spray painted with the score, which, by the way, this is in October, so grass had quit growing. So I got to see that for like 2 months. You damn Bammers. Always sticking it to me. I don't think, like, you say y'all don't have an identity. I get that. I get it, and I get it coming from Bo.
Well, and here's the one of the reasons from Frank, and then we'll kind of start closing down shop. The Bill O'Brien 3rd and 8 offense.
Frank, buddy, I want you to go grab the Ole Miss Auburn tape and the Ole Miss LSU tape, and then tell me you're worried about Bill O'Brien's 3rd and 8 defense against Ole Miss's. Going into the Ole Miss Auburn game, Auburn had the worst 3rd down conversion percentage of any offense in the SEC and one of the worst in the country. I think they converted at like an 80% rate against Ole Miss. LSU, you may need to have concerns when you get to Oxford. You might want to throw those out of the door.
I couldn't agree more.
I'm a very fatalistic Ole Miss fan. If you haven't caught on,
and it's alarming because at this point in the season, you expect things to kind of be running a lot more smooth. Mm-hmm. We have yet to have a dominant wide receiver emerge. We have yet to establish anything that kind of.
JoJo Earl's eventually going to be that, right?
He will if he's utilized correctly. Yeah, absolutely. But Bill O'Brien has got to utilize him, and I don't mean just running verticals down the field.
That's what's killing y'all right now because if Lane Kiffin was there, JoJo Earl would be your well-dressed Amani Cooper.
Oh yeah, because hey, one key factor is that he is excellent at finding mismatches and exploiting mismatches, and he will use that player's ability to his advantage and exploit the hell out of people. So, well, listen, we've been on for an hour and a half.
Rapping for an hour and a half, talking some just all over the place a little bit.
College football has started, and I know those who have been holding strong in the chat are ready to turn on their TV. So we're going to close up shop. Before I go, I'm going to turn it over to you, Pettey. If you would, pop what you got going on. How can fans find you? Tell them about Week 0 Sports, and then I'll close this out talking about the Bama Standard.
Hey, man, check us out at Week 0 Sports. You know, we're a little brother to Big Bama Standard, but we're the little engine that could. We've got a podcast that we pop out. We always love giving gambling lines, and I've also got a weekly article. It's my ponderings, but it's got a different title each week. But I basically break down the SEC and just kind of give you my thoughts in a very, if you haven't caught on, I'm a little sarcastic and a little, like I said, fatalistic when it comes to the Rebs. But I give my take on all of the SEC each week and how I think it's going and where it's going to go. So, man, give that article a read. I feel like it's pretty decent. And again, check out us at Week 0 Sports. We've got a podcast, and we do this show as much as we can on Saturdays with Justin. We need to get a little more consistent with it, but hopefully we will going forward. But, man, yeah, check us out at week0sports.com. And then my man Justin, who's just the most grinding man in YouTube podcasting sports.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Bama Standard. If you're watching on this channel, you know exactly what we're all about. Our live show is every Tuesday night on Touchdown Alabama Magazine's YouTube channel, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. We are the most politically incorrect show that you'll ever come across. If you're looking for sugarcoating, if you're looking for kind and nice, you will get your feelings hurt real quick, fast, and in a hurry, because we don't hold anything back. We have a lot of fun. It resembles the locker room. We also have Bama legends as co-hosts and as guests. And the top of the line.
Did you not see
too.
that clip during the show? I mean, there was Bo Scarborough, Derek Lassick, and Marvin Constant all in one screen, dude. Look, I know I'm a Rebel fan, but I got my Bama blood in me too. But seeing that screen, man, that don't light you up. You got to check out the show on Tuesday nights. Justin's not, I'm sorry to cut you off, Justin, but take it from a Rebel fan watching, dude. That is one of the best shows. There's not a better Alabama show out there. You're getting Derek Lassick, Teague, Scarborough, Reggie Ragland. I mean, every freaking legend from the Alabama lore comes on this show to tell you their thoughts and insights on Alabama. If you truly love Alabama and the history and the insights and where they are now, I promise you, there is not a better show on YouTube than what Justin puts together now.
I definitely appreciate that. And definitely pay close attention this Tuesday night, because it's LSU week, and we are planning something really big in terms of guests, some heroes of LSU games past. So you definitely want to keep in contact with that. Also, we have the Bama Standard post-game show with me and Coach Smook after the games, usually 2 hours after the game or on Sunday nights. So there's always something for you to be involved in. And then on this channel, we have an insane amount of clips, updates, recruiting news. If you hadn't seen some of these clips, you really need to go back and watch one of them. Let the clip with Reuben Foster be your starting point. If you've not yet done so, you will not be sorry. But listen, we've had a great show. Thank you, Pettey, for being here, making me look a lot better. Thank you to everybody in the chat for being a part of our mayhem. I know Bama's off, but we got plenty to look at this weekend and no anxiety. So,
hey, and I appreciate you. Look, man, we normally stream our show. Also, my co-host Michael is at a music festival this weekend, and so we usually stream our show also on our channel. So we kind of have a little more Ole Miss influence. So Bama fans, I know we talked a lot of Ole Miss today and a bunch of other teams. So, man, I actually appreciate y'all bearing with us and dealing with the red and blue a little bit today. So appreciate it, fellas.
Well, it's of interest to us because, like I said, we got y'all in a very pivotal game in 2 weeks. So it definitely is something we need to pay attention to. But listen, great show, guys. Enjoy this slate of college football games tonight. I help Pettey and his Ole Miss Rebels tonight. Tune in live to watch them take down the sinking
cheerleaders,
the sinking ship that is Texas A&M. And until next week, well, roll tide and
hotty toddy.
Yes, sir.